Are you able to hear me now? Can you hear me now? Aha, that's much better. For some reason, it wasn't picking up the mic that I was using, so I'm again using my phone to pick up the sound. Unfortunately, all of these little issues seem to come across sometimes, but I've fixed the issue that we had last time of not being able to see my screen very well. Now you can see it a lot better. I am on a different computer this time. So um, I just wanted to get started on going over some of the things that we should have been doing in our previous lesson, or that we should have been doing in this week's lesson in our theory-based lesson. So cybersecurity is the main thing we're talking about here. So in today's lesson, I want us to be able to think about the following security measures. So things like biometrics, passwords, capture, using email confirmations, and automatic software updates. I know that a lot of you look through these PowerPoints, but I just want to make sure you all kind of get it. So I might try and kind of whiz through this so that I can just do both lessons in one rather than having to get you to do two separate lessons on this. We'll see how we go. Okay. So the first thing I wanted to talk about is the idea of 3 factors of authentication. So the ideas of authentication is when you have a way of getting into something like a password or a key or some sort of biometric thing. So the ideas here are what you know, as in a password, what you have, as in a key or a pass card like you have at a hotel, and what you are, which is like your biometric information, your thumbprint or your iris scan and that sort of thing. Okay. So when you create a password with a website, it shouldn't generally be stored in plain text. So how should they store the passwords they get? They get salted and hashed. So this is an extra bit of information that you don't necessarily need to know for your exams, but I thought it would be really interesting for you to hear about it. So hashing is like an operation that is applied to a password. It turns text passwords into a string of numbers. So for example, if someone was to say, my voice is my password, it becomes this long string of text. And it's quite difficult to convert this back into the original text. As you can kind of see, it doesn't really make sense as it is just that long string of text. So a salt is a string of text that is added to all of the passwords that a group wanted to do. So if Instructables, which is the website I got this from, decided to make a salt called Instructables like this, it wouldn't be a very good idea. It should be more random. Obviously, this password isn't very good for, or the salt that they are using isn't that good, but it would look like this. So it would say, my voice is my password. It would then add, so my voice is my password has the hash that looks like this 7BE blah, 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 blah. But when you salt that, if you add in front of it the word Instructables or coded up like that, then the hash completely changes. But you can see as well that it's the same length as it was before. Yeah. So the length of the password that you've got, the encrypted password that has been saved on the computer system, is going to be different. The length is exactly the same, but you can see that the original password here, Instructables, my voice is my password, is much longer than the original one. But you wouldn't be able to guess how long the password is or any of the other kind of things involved with it. So yeah, that's the idea of salting and hashing there. Obviously, you've got your biometric measures. You can kind of see, like, with logging onto your phone, you can use your fingerprint. This person's used their hedgehog to log in. They've managed to get that set up so that it recognizes their hedgehog's handprint. A biometric device will identify the person who is looking to access their computer system by their physical characteristics. So it could be their fingerprint, it could be their voice, it could be their retina, which is their eye, the way their eye looks. Okay. So obviously you've seen fingerprint recognition, you've seen facial recognition as well. So fingerprint scanners will use something called capacitance. So a bit like we use our touch screen to allow us to access certain things. Fingerprint scanners detect ridges along the skin and figure out where your print is based on the ridges and the valleys in your thumb or your finger. And not every part of the finger will be touching that detector, that scanner. So it's picked up as variations in capacitance, that is being in figuring out whether you are touching it or not, and it's converted into a pattern. Now, so that means it's not possible to fool a fingerprint scanner into letting you in if you took a picture of someone else's finger or took their thumbprint or fingerprint in somewhere else and then tried to put it onto their device. You'd have to have their physical hand with you to be able to access their device. There are things like, so biometric passports use a combination of facial recognition, iris recognition, and fingerprints. UK ones don't contain fingerprints at the moment, but they do contain an RFID chip, which contains the passport number, your name and date of birth, which is the basic information that you have in a passport. Then that's linked to a database which contains your photos that you took in order to get your passport. That data comes from your photo directly, and the system uses facial recognition and iris recognition using data from that photo. So you've seen passports that's got this little symbol on it that looks a bit like a camera. That is showing that it has an RFID chip in it that contains your biometric data. Okay, and so how does that work? Facial recognition works by measuring how apart your eyes, jaw, nose, and cheekbones are. Obviously, there are some certain issues with facial recognition. If you have looked at your image, you've got to make sure your image is in good condition. So obviously, when you're taking your passport photo, they ask you to make sure you're looking straight ahead and not wearing any silly things, and making sure you've got a plain background and all of those sorts of things, with good lighting and everything. And you've got to do this in the same way when you are being checked. So when you go through security at an airport, it's the same system. They want to see the exact same lighting, the exact same way you're looking, etc. So if I was to show you this, this kind of shows you some of the different things that are being recognized on facial recognition, be it on your phone or on the passport recognition stuff. Okay, I'm going to try and zoom in a bit here because I know this isn't great to be able to see everything. Don't know what you can see. So you can see like different areas that are being measured here. So the head, the eyebrows, and chin, etc. And then if I go across a little bit, hopefully you'll see that other different parts are also looked at as well. Okay, go back to the normal view there. So some advantages of biometric things are that it's probably more secure than passwords. You can't steal them, you can't lose your fingerprint, and you can't trick someone into giving you their thumbprint or anything like that. Some disadvantages are that it's not always accurate, particularly if you can't control certain conditions, sort of with, like I was saying earlier, about lighting and that sort of thing. And people change over time. So obviously, your face is going to look very different in 10 years' time than it does now. And that's why when you need to update your passport every so often, because they want to make sure that those are connected, that it still looks like you. And also there's issues of privacy here. Could this stuff be linked back to other aspects of our lives, such as, oh, that's not very nice. Could that be linked back to other aspects of our lives, such as our home lives? Could we be viewed as, could we be seen around and about on CCTV and that kind of thing, and that be linked to our passport information? That could be quite scary, really. Okay. The next thing I want to talk about, so I hope you kind of got the idea of biometric measures, but the next thing I want to talk about is CAPTCHA. CAPTCHA is a type of challenge response test. So what they call it is the I've forgotten what it's called now. The completely automated public Turing test to tell computers and humans apart. Now it's a bit odd, this system. It's a bit of a confusing thing, but when you access a system, and when you've got to tick that "I'm not a robot" thing, that often asks you to then like select pictures of different things. That is a computer trying to determine whether you are human or not. Now, the reason they call it a Turing test is because there's this guy called Alan Turing. I don't know if you've heard of him. But he thought that if a human couldn't tell the difference between another human and the computer, that computer must be as intelligent as a human. Now, I've got a quick little video for you to watch. I think it's only 7 minutes or so. What I'd like you to do is watch the video that I'm posting in the chat, and I'll see you in about 7 minutes when that's over. So hopefully you should be coming back now after that video. Obviously he's got all of his bit at the end where he says, oh, you know, go onto the VPN and all of that stuff, but you don't need to watch that bit. So yeah, the idea of capture, hopefully you kind of got the idea of that and what that actually means. Obviously that can be quite useful to make sure that you've not got bots on your system. Um, you don't have issues with people trying to leave a system running to keep trying to log into something, for example, or keep trying to post something over and over and over again using a computer that they have written a program to do that for. So that's what capture is there to prevent. Okay. Next thing I'm talking about is using email confirmations. Now, they are there to make sure that users are, this is kind of the opposite of capture, in that users, instead of trying to prove that they are human, it's proving that they have a connection to that particular email address, proving that they are a unique person, a unique user anyway. And it's to make sure they're using their real email address, because sometimes people type in the wrong email address and they don't quite go to the right place. And so they have to click on a link to confirm that that email address is theirs. It helps prevent identity theft as well. So for example, that user can't register a government email address pretending they're someone from the government, pretending, oh, I'm the prime minister, blah blah blah, because they won't be able to click confirmation link that the email has been sent, because they don't actually own that address. That's what using email confirmations is for. Okay, that's basically all I need to say about email confirmations. So automatic software updates. Obviously, software updates are really important, as we've talked about in previous lessons, but automatic updates allow you to keep your software programs updated without having to keep checking for installing updates automatically or manually, so it'll keep checking for available updates. If they're found, the updates will be downloaded and installed without having to be told by the user, oh yeah, please log on, etc. Okay, so that's basically all I wanted to talk about with regards to the cybersecurity measures. What I'd like to move on to now is the more interesting part of it, I believe, the social engineering stuff. So, in fact, let me start from the beginning. Ooh, make sure I'm starting at the right place rather than this place. Gone too far into the PowerPoint, so let me go back. There we go. Okay, so this part of the lesson, so as I said, this is basically 2 lessons rolled into one, looking to describe what social engineering is and how it can be protected against, and to describe the following forms of social engineering: flagging, phishing, farming, and shouldering. These are all fairly straightforward. Once you've learned them, they're fairly obvious what they are and how they work. So, but it's quite fun to go through them, I think. So firstly, what is social engineering? Social engineering is the art of manipulating people, or trying to tell people something, trying to get something out of something, basically, so that they give out information that they wouldn't normally. Okay, so that is what social engineering is. That's the basic idea: trying to get information out of people by tricking them in some way. Okay, so the first one I'm going to talk about, one you'll probably see all the time: phishing. Phishing is a technique of trying to get private information from people, often by using email or even by using text messages. What I'd like you to do, I'm going to post this link into the chat. This is an updated link. I checked it this morning. I want you to take the phishing IQ test, and once you're done, I want you to write into the chat Who would generally fall for such scams, and what things do you think could be done to protect people from phishing? I'll give you a couple of minutes just to do that, and then once I see people responding, I will come back and continue. So if you write in the chat, who do you think would generally fall for these kind of scams? And what kind of things do you think could be done to protect people from this kind of scam or from phishing in general? Yeah, old people, older people would often fall for such scams. Yeah, yeah. What kind of things can be done to protect people from these kind of things? Yeah, people who don't usually use a computer, that would be right, Stefania. Yeah, they could check to see that it's definitely them, that the business themselves could do that kind of thing. What else could they do to protect people? That's something that I'm thinking of that nobody's mentioned yet. Verification badge, yeah, just to on so if it's on Twitter or something like that, or social media of some sort, having a verification badge, yeah. But there's something else that hasn't been mentioned. How could you make sure these older people or these vulnerable people could protect people? How could you protect them? If you knew that your nan was likely to fall, yeah, fall for that kind of thing, yes, you would want to educate her or educate that person. Like training and education would be the way to help these kind of scams from being a big problem. Yeah. Okay, we're moving on. Um, the next thing I want to talk about is blagging. So, blagging, I'm sure you've heard the term blagging before. Um, Blagging is the act of creating and using a scenario that is fake, an invented scenario, to try and get that victim to do something that they wouldn't normally do. So either do something or give away information that they wouldn't normally give away. Um, I'm going to quickly show you. This is a really quite scary video, actually, not as in scary as in um, spooky or anything, but scary as in how easy it is for this person to get into this person's account. I want to show you this quick little video, and again, I'm going to post a link in the description or in the chat if you are live. Okay. So again, hopefully you were able to watch that video and kind of see what was going on and see that was really easy the way she managed to get into his account and to change all his details and that sort of thing. What I'd like you to think about is what could the phone company do, not him personally, but what could the phone company do to stop this happening again? So she called up his phone company. What could that company do to stop it happening again? Could you put in the chat what they could do? So if you're just joining back again, what could the phone company do to stop this happening again? In the chat, please. Yeah, so there are sort of security questions, I think you're referring to there, where yes, it asks you for your favorite film or that sort of thing. They could send an email to the correct email. Yeah, they have to, yeah, correct those kind of questions. Yeah. Could also create a PIN that the user has to know when they sign up. Obviously, that's a bit more difficult to check, but yeah, that kind of thing would also help. Obviously, this kind of scenario isn't just for on the phone. You could do this in real life as well. You could try and blag your way into a building by, you know our school system, our where we've got our ID cards. Um, um, Someone could pose as a member of staff and sort of say, "Oh yeah, sorry, I'm new, and oh, I've forgotten my card today. Could you let me in?" And and just hope that there's someone in front of them who is gullible enough to let them in. Um, so yeah, being able to go in and sort of get information or perform actions that they wouldn't normally be doing. Okay, moving on. Shouldering or shoulder surfing is actually quite quite obvious when you find out what it is. So shoulder surfing or shouldering is looking at a person's private information over their shoulder or even using screen capture software. So um, so what I want you to write in is what different things have you seen in place to protect people from shouldering? So in the shops, um, in your school or that kind of thing. In the chat, quickly, could you write down the kind of things you might have seen in place? Mirrors, yeah. What other kinds of things? Yeah, so it's sort of a thing that tells you you need to cover your personal information with your hand. Good. So obviously on a screen, you quite often get these asterisks, these stars when you're typing in your password, because if that was on the screen, it'd be very easy for someone to see what your password is and make sure that so these stars stop people from being able to see your password while you're typing it in. At school, obviously, sometimes we have that little eye icon, which allows you to see what your password is. And a lot of you, I've seen you do it, you you make sure nobody's looking, you look around you first, and you cover up the screen with your hand and press that button, and then make sure no one's watching as you're doing that, which is really important. But if you think as well about whether people can watch you typing in your password rather than just seeing it on the screen. Um, Another thing, as was mentioned earlier, I think by Elliot, is protecting your PIN. So actually covering it up with your hand. If you write your passwords in a notebook, then it might be possible that someone could find that notebook and then use those passwords themselves. Obviously, you've got to be very careful about that sort of thing. So if you can remember a password, that is better than writing it down normally, unless you are absolutely certain that is protected, that no one is going to access that. I was going to show you this video, but I would like to just move on. I don't really think this video is as relevant as some of the others, so we're going to just move on. Is the idea that that someone will try and redirect a website from one place to another. So if you type in a farming information such as if you type in your internet banking, for example, if you try and log into your bank, then it will redirect you to another site that is actually fake. Now I'm going to show you an example of this. So this is an example of Anne's Cafe. So Anne owns a cafe in town, and she offers free Wi-Fi and obviously posts a password online. She followed her instructions to set up her router, but she kept most of her settings as default. And so we talked about default passwords in the past, and this is where I can show you where this is a real issue. Now, she advertises that password for the Wi-Fi in her cafe so she can get more customers, which is obviously something that a lot of cafes do. So what I'd like us to do is to take a closer look at this. So we've got Anne's Cafe here, and we've got Bob's house next door, which is interesting. Let's look inside Anne's Cafe. In Anne's Cafe, we've got a closet, and this is where she stores her router, if we can find it, her router, and all of the different things that she needs to connect her users to the network. And then also there are lots of different users in her cafe who are connected to her Wi-Fi. So you've got different people there who are all connected. And if we look here, you can see all the different people that are connected. This is a non-physical view. You've got Jane here. You've got, can't quite read it from this view. Just see. We've got Jane, we've got Sam, we've got a random tablet, as well as Bob. Bob is also connected, but you can see that that is all connected to the internet and to their modem, their router, all connected to the internet in general. Okay, and in the meantime, you can also see that Bob has what we call a rogue router. So if I go back to the physical view and show you, let me go back to over here, so you can see inside Bob's house. Here's Bob in his house. Inside his closet, he has his own routers, so his normal router that he connects to, but he also has this rogue router. Now, if Bob were to log onto his laptop, which is currently connected via Wi-Fi to Anne's Cafe. So if I click on here, I can show you what his laptop will look like. You can open up his web browser. You can go on to www.mybank.com and it'll open up mybank.com website and ask them to enter his username and password as you normally do. And any of these other laptops or tablets could also do the same thing. Now, if he goes to 192.168.0.1 and goes into there, he gets up this authentication box. Now, as I mentioned in a previous lesson, he will sometimes get a username and password box pop up. Yeah. So as I mentioned in a previous lesson, this could be a default password, and he's going to guess that Anne isn't tech savvy enough to be able to have changed her password. So he's going to try the default admin as the username, and then password is also admin. Let's try that. Presses OK, and oh look, I've logged in. I've got into the router settings for that router, so for Anne's Cafe. Now, usually you'd think, oh no, this isn't too bad an issue, is it? It's all it is allowing Bob to have a look at all the different settings that are set up. It might allow him to change the password, which would be a bit annoying, but all they need to do is change it back, right? Well, actually, all he can do is set this to disabled, right? If he sets it to disabled, and then he goes, okay, right, I'm going to go now back home, and see, you can see all of these guys have been disconnected because they can't connect to that Wi-Fi anymore. So they'll have gone, oh, my signal's gone. I wonder what's happened. In the meantime, Bob will connect to his rogue router, go into the settings, and he'll go, okay, Anne's Cafe, yeah, that's the same broadcast ID that she had in there, and the password, and I can change the password in there as well. Oh, I've forgotten where the settings for those are, but to change it so that basically it's the same password. And I'm just going to allow that one. And in a moment, you should be able to see all of these laptops connecting to Bob's rogue router, which is what you kind of also think, well, so they've kind of just gone, okay, well, I'm now connected to, I've gone, oh, well, my internet connection's gone, but oh, it's come back up again. It must have just been a blip. And then they just go onto their, so this is Jane's laptop now. They go onto their internet and they go into www.mybank.com. And you'll notice that this time it's got this extra little picture. That shows that actually what Bob has done is it's the same internet connection, it's the same website, mybank.com, as you would have been able to connect to before, but instead of connecting to the actual mybank.com website, it's connecting to Bob's version of mybank.com, which the only difference, just to show you guys what the difference is, the only difference is this picture here, which shows that shows us that this is actually a different website. But otherwise, he can just copy everything to the website so it looks exactly the same, and they would still enter their username and password. It wouldn't work, but then Bob now has access to that person's bank details, and obviously that would be a really bad thing for Jane and Sam in these circumstances. Okay, so that's one reason why people really should not be connecting to Wi-Fi and trying to log on to banks and things like that, and during those times. So what I'd like us to think about in the chat, how could Anne have protected her customers against this sort of attack? And how could the customers have protected themselves in these situations as well? VPN would have protected the individual customers, yeah. So when we say make the Wi-Fi more secure, what do we actually mean? How can we make that Wi-Fi more secure? So do you mean the sort of Cisco 123 password? Is that what you're referring to? When you're saying make the password stronger and harder to guess, because that's the default that she has for the users to type in, for the people who come and visit her in her. There we go, Leon. Yes. So the default settings that were set up, the admin, that was something that Bob was able to access in, because he knows a little bit about technology. He knows that that kind of router will often have the password of admin, and often you can look up that kind of stuff on the internet, as long as you try and work out, okay, well, I can see that that person's got a router in the corner of the room, and I can see that it's a Linksys one, so I'll just Google Linksys router default admin password or something like that, and it will often give you a list of different passwords that are given. So yeah, if she'd have been able to set up her system a lot better, then that would have been a lot better protected. It would have worked a lot better for those kind of things. And with regards to the customers themselves, if they make sure they are not, yeah, so making sure you keep the router out of sight, yeah. So the customers can protect themselves by not going onto websites that are likely to have personal details or those kind of things that could be hacked into if you were to give away those details. You wouldn't want to give them away, such as a bank or maybe even social media. Don't log onto those kind of things using Wi-Fi that's free Wi-Fi. Okay, so that's one way of doing it. Other ways, as some people have mentioned, using a VPN, that's a possibility, but it doesn't always work perfectly, because you can still be connected to, because obviously straight away you are still connecting to someone's account. So the best way of protecting yourselves in these situations is don't go on websites that that you wouldn't want someone to be able to access your information for on a public Wi-Fi network. Okay. Have we got any questions about any of the topics we've covered this lesson? Because that is pretty much everything. So we've talked about flagging, phishing, farming, and shouldering, and we've also talked about the biometric measures, password, using email confirmation, and automatic software updates. So any questions about any of those? But otherwise, that is pretty much the end of our lesson. Before next lesson, as in before, I'm trying to work out when I will inform you when this is due, but I want you to be able to complete the post test, which is on the tiny URL. I will as well put this onto show my homework, so that you all know you need to be doing this. But yeah, I'd like you to complete that post test. I haven't put it in yet. It probably won't be on the tiny URL, thinking about it, because it is a written test, not an online one. I'd forgotten about that. So I would like you to complete that as in a Word document. Now, if you've not been able to log into a Word document before, what I would suggest, if you don't have Word on your computer, what I would suggest is, hang on, let me just see this so I can actually see what I'm doing. There we go. Right. So I would suggest you go onto Outlook and log into your email. So log into your school email address. So I've got mine, log in there, and then If I just quickly go to my deleted items so that you don't see on the email. Oh, can't find it all. Should have gone there already, but never mind. If you click on the top here, then click on Word, then that should come up like this. Okay, and just wait for that to load. You can then click on plus to open a new Word document, and then just wait for that to load, and then you can just type in your Word document and save it like you would a normal Word document. If you click on save and save as, and then you can download them as a copy, you can download them as PDFs, and then could you get those submitted onto the shared drive. You can use other methods if you want for this, but for other people, you might want to use Word for other teachers, because that might be quite useful for you to access those kind of things. Okay. Any questions about what we've done this lesson just before we end there? Okay, well, we've managed to do an hour, so hopefully for you, hopefully you've been able to get something out of that, much like we would in a normal lesson. I do hope you send me that test. Please land conditions, but obviously on paper you'll be writing in a Word document. That's the only difference. Okay. I will tell you how long you will need for it, and make sure that you post it onto Show My Homework, or even send it to me in an email. Okay, I'm going to end it there. So I hope you are all doing well, and that you are working well, and that everyone is happy and healthy, and yeah, that you're not too stressed during this time. Have a great week. Have a great afternoon. I will see you next time. Bye.